Welcome to the Cheating Wife Stories channel. Victor Mercer sat alone in his high-rise office overlooking the city that never slept. By all outward appearances, he was just another financial consultant, quiet, unassuming, and impeccably dressed in a tailored suit. In reality, Victor's life was a delicate balancing act between the polished veneer of legitimacy and the clandestine operations that truly defined his existence. Today, he was about to close yet another transaction that would reinforce his reputation as the master of disguise in the world of offshore finance. For hours, Victor had been meticulously poring over spreadsheets and encrypted messages. His fingers danced across the keyboard, inputting commands that routed millions of dollars through a labyrinth of bank accounts in jurisdictions known more for their secrecy than their regulatory oversight. Each keystroke was measured and deliberate. Every transaction was a testament to his precision and expertise. While his colleagues in the financial sector prided themselves on their analytical acumen and market insights, Victor's true skill lay in the art of concealment. He managed dozens of international bank accounts and multiple crypto wallets under a series of shell corporations that camouflaged his vast operations. To the public eye, his reported income was modest, a mere facade maintained to deflect attention from the fortunes he quietly amassed behind the scenes. As the final confirmation of the transfer blinked onto his screen, Victor allowed himself a brief smile of satisfaction. The transaction, moving several $1 million across 3 continents, was now complete. In that moment, the weight of responsibility mingled with the thrill of executing the perfect maneuver. His calm and unflappable demeanor belied the storm of calculations and contingency plans that churned behind his eyes. For Victor, every financial move was a chess match, and every bank account was a piece on his board. The success of today's operation was not only a reaffirmation of his unmatched skill, but also a necessary measure to keep his darker enterprises safely obscured from prying governmental eyes. Victor's mind, however, was not solely occupied with numbers and transfers. His thoughts drifted to the mansion he called home, a sprawling estate that exuded opulence and refinement, yet was entirely sustained by the covert streams of wealth flowing through his carefully orchestrated schemes. The mansion, with its immaculate gardens and discreet security, was both a symbol of success and a necessary decoy. Within its walls lived not just the material trappings of luxury, but also his beloved wife, Sophia. Sophia was as vibrant and captivating as the first day they met, a woman whose beauty and grace illuminated every room she entered. Unbeknownst to her, the lavish lifestyle she enjoyed was built upon the intricate web of offshore accounts and shadow transactions orchestrated by Victor. Despite the apparent ease with which he navigated the world of high finance, Victor was ever cautious. The line between legitimacy and criminality was perilously thin, and one misstep could unravel everything. It was this understanding that compelled him to maintain an unwavering vigilance in both his professional dealings and personal life. Each new transaction was accompanied by a discreet risk assessment. Each account and wallet was continuously monitored for any signs of irregularity that might draw unwanted attention. His dual life required a level of discipline and secrecy that few could comprehend, and Victor had mastered this balancing act over years of relentless dedication. In the quiet solitude of his office, Victor allowed himself a moment of introspection. The successful completion of the day's task reinforced his belief in the system he had built. A system where appearances were carefully managed and truth was a currency even more precious than money itself. Outwardly, he was a respected consultant with a steady, unremarkable income, but beneath that calm surface lay an intricate network of financial maneuvers that kept his empire secure. The mansion, the luxurious cars, and the impeccable lifestyle were all part of an elaborate ruse designed to shield him from suspicion. As twilight descended and the city lights began to flicker on, Victor closed his laptop and leaned back in his chair, his mind already racing ahead to the next operation. He knew that every day brought new challenges, new risks, and new opportunities to reinforce his carefully constructed facade. In the world of high stakes and hidden fortunes, there was no room for error. With the precision of a seasoned strategist, Victor Mercer embraced the duality of his existence. A man whose true wealth was measured not in the glitter of gold or the flash of banknotes, but in the mastery of deception and the art of living two lives without ever letting them collide. Sophia Mercer stood in the foyer of her expansive mansion, the soft hum of classical music mingling with the gentle rustle of silk from her evening gown. The opulence surrounding her, marble floors, shimmering chandeliers, and meticulously curated art, spoke of a life of privilege and comfort. Yet beneath the polished exterior lay a quiet heart burdened with loneliness and an unspoken yearning for something more. Every day, as she glided through the corridors of her home, she was surrounded by luxury that was never truly hers, but merely a mirage conjured by the careful orchestration of someone she once believed loved her unconditionally. In the midst of a glittering social calendar filled with charity galas, elegant dinner parties, and private soirees, Sophia was the picture of effortless grace. She knew how to captivate a room with her sparkling wit and enchanting smile, and her every appearance was accompanied by whispers of admiration. But as the lights dimmed on each event and the crowds dispersed, a profound emptiness settled in. There were moments, in the quiet after midnight, when the lavish surroundings felt cold and unfamiliar, and she longed for a passion that went beyond the superficial charm of high society. Her mind often wandered back to a time before the trappings of wealth and prestige, when life had been simpler and love had a raw, unfiltered intensity. In those memories, Ethan Drake appeared like a beacon of untamed spirit. He had been her first true love, a man whose presence was as exhilarating as it was unpredictable. Their youthful romance had been filled with spontaneous adventures, laughter that echoed in sunlit parks, and secret rendezvous beneath starlit skies. Ethan's eyes held a promise of freedom and possibility, and his very touch had ignited a spark within her that she had never experienced before. In contrast to the carefully controlled life she now led, Ethan had embodied risk and passion. These recollections, vivid and bittersweet, stirred emotions that Sophia had long tried to bury under layers of duty and decorum. She recalled long afternoons spent wandering along the riverbank with Ethan, his hand entwined with hers as they planned a future free of constraints. The allure of his untamed nature was intoxicating, a stark contrast to the meticulously measured life she now maintained. Even as she smiled politely at society's expectations, there was a part of her that ached for that unbridled passion, a love that did not come with conditions or secrets. In recent months, subtle hints of Ethan's resurgence have begun to ripple through the elegant circles she frequented. At a summer garden party, a close friend offhandedly mentioned that a familiar face from years past had been seen in town. There was an undeniable air of excitement mixed with trepidation in the whispers that followed. Though Sophia tried to dismiss the fleeting comment, the seed of possibility had been planted in her heart. The thought of encountering Ethan again stirred a cocktail of emotions: nostalgia, hope, and a touch of forbidden thrill. Every time she glanced at her phone or received a stray comment from a mutual acquaintance, she felt the distant echo of a past that refused to fade into oblivion. As she prepared for another evening event, Sophia found herself pausing before her vanity mirror. She studied her reflection, the carefully applied makeup, the elegant contours of her dress, and the confident set of her features. But in that reflective moment, the mask of perfection began to slip, revealing a glimpse of vulnerability. Behind her serene eyes was a woman who longed to feel alive, to break free from the confines of a life dictated by appearances. The luxury that surrounded her had become a gilded cage, its beauty tinged with the bitter taste of isolation. Every decision she made was a reminder of the sacrifices required to maintain the status quo. The lifestyle that provided her with every material comfort also demanded a constant performance, a relentless effort to keep her inner desires hidden away. She had learned to compartmentalize her life, allowing the world to see only the dazzling, composed socialite, while the depths of her soul wrestled with longing and regret. The romance of her past with Ethan was more than a memory. It was an echo that resonated in the quiet moments of her solitude, whispering of a time when love had been raw and real. Now, with murmurs of Ethan's return reaching her through the discreet channels of high society, Sophia felt the first stirrings of a change she had both feared and secretly desired. The prospect of confronting a past that was so deeply interwoven with her identity ignited a spark of rebellion within her. She wondered if the careful, polished life she had built could ever accommodate the unpredictable passion of a man like Ethan. There was danger in that thought, a dangerous allure that promised both liberation and heartbreak. As she stepped away from the mirror, preparing herself for the night ahead, Sophia resolved to let her heart guide her, even if only in fleeting moments of honesty. The luxurious trappings of her existence would continue to shine around her, but in the quiet recesses of her mind, the echoes of a bygone love stirred with quiet intensity. Little did she know that the whispers of Ethan's return would soon begin to weave a thread of disruption through the tapestry of her meticulously ordered life, setting the stage for choices that would challenge everything she had ever known. Over the course of several weeks, the rhythm of life in the Mercer household began to shift in subtle yet unmistakable ways. Sophia, who had long been the epitome of refined elegance and impeccable composure, started to embrace a transformation that was as unexpected as it was intriguing. Early morning reflections in the mirror revealed a woman who was experimenting with bolder colors and more daring silhouettes. Gone were the conservative dresses and muted hues that once defined her wardrobe. Instead, she now favored outfits that accentuated her curves and hinted at a rebellious spirit beneath the polished exterior. Sophia's mornings became a ritual of self-discovery. She would stand for long moments before her vanity, carefully selecting accessories and adjusting her makeup with a thoughtful deliberation that suggested an emerging desire to express facets of her identity long suppressed. As the days passed, her wardrobe shifted further toward riskier choices, a splash of scarlet here, a sliver of plunging neckline there. The transformation was not merely aesthetic. It carried the weight of an inner restlessness, a longing for a connection that went beyond the rigid constraints of her current existence. The change was not confined to her style alone. Her phone, once a tool relegated to the routine scheduling of society events and trivial communications, now buzzed with a frequency that unsettled her. Mysterious messages began arriving in the quiet hours of the morning, their contents laced with flirtatious banter and hints of a past passion that had once illuminated her youth. These messages, at times cryptic and at others overtly provocative, left her both intrigued and conflicted. Sophia found herself checking her device with a furtive eagerness, as if each alert might deliver a piece of a puzzle she had long forgotten existed. The discreet digital exchanges stirred in her a sense of anticipation and danger, a potent mix that she neither fully understood nor could easily dismiss. Across town, Victor Mercer sat in the calm solitude of his meticulously organized office, his mind primarily occupied with numbers and confidential transactions. Yet even amidst the familiar hum of his daily routine, an undercurrent of disquiet began to weave its way into his thoughts. In the midst of reviewing detailed financial reports and monitoring his network of international accounts, he found his attention inexplicably drawn to subtle changes in the patterns of domestic life. His intuition, honed over years of navigating delicate balances between legitimacy and subterfuge, picked up on an anomaly. There was a noticeable shift in the cadence of Sophia's daily communications, her schedule, her tone, even the way she responded to routine texts, all of which now carried an unfamiliar inflection that hinted at distraction and inner turmoil. Late one afternoon, as Victor closed his laptop after finalizing another discrete transaction, he paused to reflect on the evening's agenda. The Mercer mansion, with its familiar hum of luxury and order, now seemed to hold a note of quiet tension. His mind drifted to brief, almost imperceptible changes he'd observed. The way Sophia's laughter no longer echoed with its usual carefree melody during dinner, the fleeting moments when her eyes appeared distant as though wrestling with thoughts she dared not voice aloud. For a man who prided himself on seeing through the veils of artifice, these small signs were enough to plant a seed of suspicion. Though his expertise lay in the realm of financial stratagems, Victor was no stranger to the nuances of human behavior, and he knew that even the most subtle shifts could signal the onset of something profound. That fateful evening arrived during a high society gala hosted in one of the city's most elegant ballrooms. The event, a dazzling display of wealth and refined taste, brought together an array of influential figures whose every word and gesture was weighed with unspoken significance. Amid the sparkling conversation and flowing champagne, Victor found himself casually conversing with a trusted acquaintance, a discerning socialite whose reputation for keen observation was well known. As they navigated discussions of art acquisitions and philanthropic endeavors, the acquaintance casually mentioned that a familiar figure from years past had been spotted in town, a name that sent a jolt through Victor's composed exterior. The name was Ethan Drake, a man whose presence, though long relegated to the archives of distant memories, now carried an air of unmistakable intrigue. The mention of Ethan, delivered with a hint of excitement and veiled concern, cut through the glamorous chatter like a shard of ice. Victor's mind raced as he processed the implications of this revelation. The name was not only a reminder of a past romance that had once defined Sophia's youthful days, but also a potential catalyst for the destruction of the delicate equilibrium he had so painstakingly maintained. The idea that Ethan Drake might be returning to their midst was both alarming and fascinating, a variable that could upend the status quo in ways that neither of them could predict. As the gala continued and the night deepened, Victor's thoughts remained firmly fixed on the potential consequences of this revelation. The subtle changes in Sophia's demeanor, coupled with the unexpected news of Ethan's return, set into motion a series of questions that would demand answers in the coming days. Unbeknownst to Sophia, the stage had been set for a confrontation with the past, a confrontation that would test the limits of trust, passion, and the intricate web of secrets that bound them all. In that moment, amidst the clinking of glasses and whispered confidences, the air was thick with the promise of change, and the Mercer household braced itself for the tumultuous shifts that lay ahead. Victor Mercer sat at his sleek mahogany desk long after the city's lights had dimmed, his mind still restless from the revelations at the gala. He knew that the return of Ethan Drake posed a threat not only to his carefully constructed empire, but also to the fragile balance of his personal life. Determined to uncover every hidden detail about this enigmatic figure, Victor reached for his secure phone and initiated contact with his most trusted network of operatives, a covert collective known for their unparalleled skills in cyber surveillance and dark web research. Within minutes, encrypted messages began to flow between Victor and his team. He issued precise instructions: compile an exhaustive dossier on Ethan Drake, leaving no stone unturned. His request was simple yet uncompromising. Every piece of information about Ethan was to be retrieved, analyzed, and reported back with meticulous clarity. Victor's voice, steady and measured, conveyed a blend of professional detachment and a personal edge that few ever witnessed. To him, this was not merely an exercise in data collection. It was an imperative act to safeguard his world. Over the next several hours, the screens in Victor's office flickered with streams of data as his operatives dived deep into the labyrinth of the internet. They scoured social media profiles, financial records, public registries, and obscure online forums where whispers of Ethan's past exploits were shared among like-minded individuals. The network's expertise allowed them to piece together a comprehensive profile. Ethan Drake was not just a relic of Sophia's youthful romance, but a man with a complex and multifaceted past. His background revealed a series of impulsive decisions, romantic liaisons, and a penchant for adventure that bordered on recklessness. Yet there was a calculated charm about him, a charisma that had evidently not waned with time. As the dossier grew, so did its level of detail. The report included biographical information that traced Ethan's lineage and education, professional endeavors that oscillated between stability and daring ventures, and a record of his relationships that painted a picture of a man who thrived on passion and spontaneity. Most disconcerting to Victor, however, was the section dedicated to his communications with Sophia. The dossier cataloged hundreds of messages, some innocuous, others laced with suggestive undertones. Each text was time-stamped and, in several cases, geotagged, revealing a pattern of frequent flirtatious exchanges that spanned weeks. The operatives had even managed to intercept several messages through a sophisticated hacking of encrypted channels, providing indisputable evidence of Ethan's persistent attempts to rekindle a connection with Sofia. Victor leaned back in his leather chair, absorbing the weight of the information that now sprawled across multiple monitors. The dossier was a masterpiece of modern surveillance, a meticulous mosaic of Ethan's past and present. It detailed his favorite haunts, his travel itineraries, and even highlighted moments when his online activity spiked, likely corresponding to interactions with Sofia. Every bit of data was a reminder that the man once adored by his wife was not a ghost from the past, but a living, breathing variable that could upset the delicate equilibrium of his carefully curated life. Yet as Victor reviewed the dossier, a storm of conflicting emotions brewed within him. Professionally, he felt the satisfaction of a job well executed. His network had delivered exactly what he needed. But beneath that veneer of control, a personal betrayal simmered. The evidence of Sofia's covert communications with Ethan was like a slow-burning fuse, igniting memories of trust shattered and promises broken. Victor's mind oscillated between the cold logic of a strategist and the raw sting of wounded pride. Each piece of data was a confirmation that his suspicions were not unfounded, and the realization that his personal life was intertwined with the undercurrents of his clandestine operations hit him with an unexpected force. In the solitude of his office, Victor wrestled with this duality. The dossier was more than a collection of facts. It was a mirror reflecting the fractures in his once unassailable world. He had built his empire on precision and secrecy, yet here lay evidence of an intimate betrayal that threatened to dismantle the foundations of his carefully maintained facade. The lines between business and personal were blurring, and with every new revelation, the clarity of his vision grew more distorted. Victor knew that the next steps would be fraught with risk. The dossier had armed him with the intelligence he needed, but it also set the stage for an emotionally charged confrontation. As he closed his eyes for a moment of reflection, he resolved that no matter the cost, he would confront the emerging threat head-on. The integrity of his empire and the sanctity of his personal life depended on it. In that quiet moment, as the hum of the city whispered through his office window, Victor Mercer steeled himself for the turbulent path ahead, where every secret uncovered was a step toward reclaiming control over a life teetering on the edge of chaos. Victor had learned earlier that today, at L'Horizon, a sleek, upscale restaurant known for its refined ambience and discreet clientele, Sofia was scheduled to meet with Ethan Drake. With a steely resolve that belied the turmoil churning beneath his calm exterior, he arrived early, the cool evening air sharpening his focus. Dressed in a tailored suit that exuded quiet authority, Victor stepped into the softly lit foyer of L'Horizon. The gentle murmur of conversation, the clink of fine china, and the subtle strains of a live piano ensemble set an atmosphere of cultivated elegance that contrasted sharply with the storm of emotions he now navigated. Before making his way to his reserved table, Victor discreetly signaled to a trusted associate stationed near the entrance, a silent, knowing nod that ensured backup was in place should the confrontation escalate. His mind replayed the details from the dossier and the earlier signs of betrayal. Every piece of information, every intercepted message, now lent a heavy gravity to his purpose. Today, he was not here as a mere patron of fine dining, but as an arbiter of consequences. Gliding past elegantly dressed diners, Victor found his way to a secluded corner booth. There, at a table set against a backdrop of soft, ambient lighting, sat Sofia and Ethan. The sight struck him immediately. Sofia, always the epitome of grace, had chosen an outfit that evening which was both alluring and uncharacteristically bold, a dress that accentuated her curves and hinted at an inner transformation Victor had noted in recent weeks. Her makeup, though flawless, carried a spark of defiance, and her posture spoke of a woman unburdening herself of constraints. Across from her, Ethan exuded an air of casual confidence, his demeanor both relaxed and provocatively taunting. He leaned in slightly as he spoke, his eyes locked on Sophia with a mixture of warmth and challenge. Victor's heartbeat quickened as he approached the table. The restaurant's hushed elegance seemed to amplify every step he took, each echo a reminder of the high stakes at hand. Reaching the table, he offered a polite, measured greeting that did little to mask the undercurrent of tension. "Good afternoon," he said, his tone even but imbued with a controlled intensity. "I believe we need to have a word, privately." Sophia's eyes widened in startled confusion, while Ethan's confident smirk faltered ever so slightly. Sensing the precarious balance between public decorum and private conflict, Victor continued, "Sophia, would you accompany me for a moment?" His voice carried the weight of authority, leaving no room for misinterpretation. The ambient chatter around them hushed for an instant as Sophia hesitated, her hand resting lightly on the table. Ethan's gaze flickered between them, his expression a mix of defiance and uncertainty. With a reluctant nod, she excused herself from the table, and together, Victor and Sophia rose and walked toward a more secluded area of the restaurant. A quiet alcove near the back, where soft lighting and discreet service offered a semblance of privacy. The transition from the opulent dining room to this more intimate setting was stark, a physical manifestation of the divide between public appearances and the private confrontation that was about to unfold. Inside the quiet alcove, the tension coiled between them. Victor's eyes searched Sophia's face for any sign of remorse or defiance, while her own gaze flickered with a mixture of regret and guarded determination. The soft hum of conversation from the main dining area underscored the gravity of their exchange, reminding them that even here, in the temporary sanctuary of privacy, the outside world watched silently. "Sophia," Victor began, his tone measured yet laden with unspoken hurt, "I have become aware of communications between you and Ethan Drake. Communications that suggest a rekindling of a connection from your past. I need to understand why this is happening." His words were deliberate, each syllable carefully chosen to convey both his disappointment and the urgency of the situation. Sophia's eyes shimmered with unshed tears as she struggled to articulate her inner conflict. "Victor, it's not as simple as you think," she murmured, her voice trembling with emotion. "There's a part of me that still remembers a different kind of passion, a freedom I once felt with him. I never meant to hurt you. It just happened." The softness in her tone contrasted sharply with the steel in Victor's gaze. He leaned in slightly, his voice low and controlled. "This isn't merely about past memories, Sophia. It is about the trust that forms the very foundation of our life together. When you allow yourself to be drawn back to that past, you jeopardize not only our relationship but the carefully maintained balance that protects both our personal and professional worlds." Outside, in the main dining area, murmurs of conversation resumed as the brief pause in the quiet alcove seemed to ripple through the room, though no one directly noticed the unfolding drama. In that charged space, time appeared to slow as Sophia's expression shifted from confusion to a dawning realization of the consequences of her actions. Victor's tone softened ever so slightly, an acknowledgement that despite his current resolve, the pain of betrayal was not without personal cost. "I'm giving you a chance to explain, to make this right," he said, each word measured and deliberate. "But know that the path ahead will require absolute commitment. I will not tolerate anything less." The air between them was heavy with the unspoken ultimatum, a test of loyalty, desire, and the power of memory versus the demands of the present. As the conversation continued, the private confrontation became a battleground where love, betrayal, and duty collided in a silent struggle that promised to alter the course of their intertwined lives. With every word exchanged in that secluded alcove, the elegant veneer of Le Horizon served as a stark reminder that even in the most refined settings, passion and conflict could break through, leaving nothing unscathed. Inside the quiet seclusion of a private section at Le Horizon, The air between Victor and Sofia grew dense with unspoken tension. The soft ambient light cast long shadows over their faces, each revealing hints of vulnerability and resolve. Victor's gaze was steady, his eyes betraying the depth of hurt and disappointment that lay beneath his carefully controlled exterior. He had waited for this moment, the moment when truths long buried would finally surface, and the fate of their marriage would hang in the balance. "Sophia," Victor began, his voice low and measured, "I have uncovered communications between you and Ethan Drake that suggest more than mere friendly exchanges. I need you to tell me exactly what has been happening." His words, though calm, carried the weight of a man who had lost something precious: trust. For a moment, silence reigned between them, punctuated only by the distant murmur of diners in the main room. Sophia's eyes, filled with both sorrow and a flicker of defiance, trembled as she met his unwavering stare. Slowly, she exhaled, as though releasing a burden that had weighed on her heart for far too long. "Victor, I never intended to betray you," she said softly, her voice wavering with emotion. I have been confused, lost between a life we built and a past that still calls to me. When Ethan returned, I found myself reminiscing about who I once was, a woman full of passion and spontaneity. It wasn't physical, not in the way you fear. It was the stirring of emotions I thought I had long left behind. Her eyes glistened with unshed tears as she continued. I felt an undeniable pull, a reminder of a time when I felt truly alive. I know it sounds selfish, but I needed to feel that spark, even if only for a moment. Victor's face remained impassive, though the pain in his eyes deepened. "Sophia, passion and memories are not enough to sustain a marriage built on trust and mutual respect. Our entire life, our stability, rests on the promise we made to each other. You are my partner in every way. And these covert messages, these flirtations, have undermined that promise. I must know, what exactly did you hope to find in this connection? Were you seeking to recapture a lost youth, or is there something more?" His tone was both an accusation and a plea for understanding. Her gaze faltered as she absorbed his words, and she clasped her hands together tightly. "I was confused," she admitted, voice breaking. "For a while, I felt trapped in a life that was comfortable, but not entirely fulfilling. Ethan's return stirred feelings I thought were buried forever. I did not act on them physically. I swear to you that nothing more happened, but the emotional lure was too strong. I felt that old fire, a reminder of who I once was, and it overwhelmed me with guilt and desire all at once." Victor's expression hardened imperceptibly as he processed her confession. He leaned forward, his voice quiet but unyielding. "Sophia, feelings are one matter, but actions have consequences. Our relationship is built on trust and commitment. I cannot ignore what I have learned. I am giving you a choice, and it is a choice that must be made with complete honesty. Either you recommit fully to our marriage, severing all contact with Ethan Drake, or you choose to leave this union. If you decide to stay, I demand absolute fidelity and transparency, no exceptions. If you decide otherwise, you must understand that the life you have known, our shared security, our future, will vanish along with the privileges that come with it." Her eyes filled with tears as the gravity of his ultimatum sank in. The soft hum of the restaurant seemed to fade into the background as the two sat locked in this fateful exchange. "I never wanted to hurt you," she whispered. "I love you, Victor, and I want to repair what's been broken. I realize now that chasing the ghost of a past I once knew was a mistake that jeopardized everything we have. I am willing to cut off any ties with Ethan, to reaffirm my commitment to you and our life together." Victor listened, his expression unreadable, as he absorbed her words. The silence that followed was thick with the significance of the moment, a moment where the future of their marriage hung precariously in the balance. Finally, he spoke in a voice that brooked no argument. "Sophia, if you choose to remain in our marriage, I expect you to sever all emotional and physical ties with Ethan Drake immediately. There will be no further contact, no secret messages, and certainly no ambiguous interactions. Our path forward depends on rebuilding trust, and that trust starts with an unyielding commitment to our marriage. Should you fail to abide by this, I will have no choice but to dissolve what we have built." As the words left his lips, a heavy silence enveloped them. The ultimatum was clear and final, a stark line drawn in the sand. Sophia's eyes, now shimmering with a blend of remorse and determination, held Victor's gaze as she nodded slowly. "I understand," she said, her voice trembling but resolute. "I choose our marriage. I choose you, and I will do whatever it takes to rebuild the trust I have broken." In that secluded alcove, the collision of past desires and present responsibilities was laid bare. Victor's measured authority and Sophia's tearful confession merged into a single, poignant moment of reckoning, a moment where unspoken desires were replaced by a commitment to move forward, no matter the cost. The future, uncertain and fraught with challenges, would now be built on the fragile promise of redemption and the hope that love, when tested by fire, could emerge stronger than before. Ethan Drake refused to accept being cast aside so easily. In the days following his confrontation with Victor at L'Horizon, his defiance became increasingly apparent. Rather than retreating, Ethan's arrogance grew, and he began to broadcast his sentiments with a swagger that bordered on insolence. Publicly, he maintained that Sophia's heart was still his, and every encounter, whether at upscale gatherings or through sly, provocative social media posts, reaffirmed his claim. His dismissive attitude toward Victor's authority not only emboldened him, but also fanned the flames of a dangerous escalation that threatened to spill over into both the personal and professional realms. Unwilling to let Ethan's defiance undermine everything he had so painstakingly built, Victor mobilized his network of operatives with renewed determination. In the shadows of the digital world, Victor's team launched a series of covert operations designed to send a clear, unmistakable message to Ethan. It began with subtle digital sabotage, carefully orchestrated hacks that disrupted Ethan's online presence. His social media accounts experienced inexplicable glitches, and carefully planted misinformation cast doubts about his reputation among his peers and friends. These actions, executed with surgical precision, were not overt enough to attract public scrutiny, but were designed to isolate Ethan from his network of influence. Simultaneously, Victor's operatives initiated discreet physical surveillance. They trailed Ethan during his late-night rendezvous at exclusive clubs and monitored his movements through a network of informants scattered throughout the city. Small, targeted disruptions followed. Unauthorized transactions that briefly froze his access to funds, and the unexplained disappearance of a prized watch, a family heirloom that Ethan had often boasted about. The theft was executed with such finesse that no evidence pointed directly back to Victor. Yet the message was clear. No asset, no matter how cherished, was beyond the reach of those who served him. As these measures compounded, Ethan found himself increasingly beleaguered. His confident public persona began to crack under the pressure of subtle yet relentless interference. Friends and acquaintances, once quick to rally around his charm, now whispered about the strange setbacks he was experiencing. Each time he attempted to reassert his defiant claim over Sophia, new challenges emerged: mysterious errors in his communications, inexplicable delays in his plans, and even a few missteps that seemed to hint at external manipulation. For Victor, the situation was a double-edged sword. While his operatives' actions were effective in sending a message to Ethan, they also carried the inherent risk of drawing unwanted attention. Every digital sabotage, every carefully executed borrowing of Ethan's prized possessions, was a gamble, a risk that, if exposed, could compromise the intricate network of clandestine operations Victor had built over the years. Balancing his personal vendetta with the need to protect his broader empire required meticulous planning and an unyielding resolve. Victor was acutely aware that any slip could expose not only his methods, but also the very foundations of his dual life. Amid the mounting tensions, Ethan's defiance took on a more aggressive tone. He began publicly challenging Victor's indirect influence, issuing vague threats through coded language in interviews and social media posts that reached a growing audience. His rhetoric was laced with bravado, yet underneath it all lay the unmistakable strain of a man cornered by forces beyond his control. The public narrative slowly shifted, and while many admired his rebellious spirit, a few began to suspect that Ethan's luck was running thin. Victor, watching these developments unfold from the safe confines of his private office, felt a complex mixture of satisfaction and trepidation. His network of operatives continued to operate in the shadows, ensuring that every move Ethan made was meticulously tracked and, when necessary, countered with precision. Yet the more he intervened, the more he risked intertwining his personal vendetta with the exposed operations of his financial empire. The stakes had never been higher. Not only was his marriage on the line, but the very structure of his carefully constructed facade was in jeopardy. In the midst of these covert maneuvers and escalating tensions, Victor steeled himself for the inevitable collision course ahead. Every disruption inflicted on Ethan was a calculated step toward reasserting control, yet the risk of exposure loomed large. His operatives worked tirelessly, orchestrating each move like pieces on a chessboard, each sacrifice made in the shadowy war against a man who dared to defy him. As the digital and physical battlegrounds converged, Victor understood that this confrontation was not merely about settling a personal score. It was about safeguarding his entire world from the chaos that Ethan's defiance threatened to unleash. Late one night, the Mercer mansion lay enveloped in a hushed stillness that contrasted sharply with the storm raging in Sophia's heart. Alone in her spacious bedroom, with only the soft glow of a bedside lamp for company, she sat quietly before a mirror that reflected a woman torn between past desires and present realities. The weight of Victor's ultimatum pressed down on her like an unyielding force. In that intimate solitude, every whispered memory and every unspoken regret surged to the surface, demanding to be acknowledged. Sophia closed her eyes and let her thoughts drift back to a time when life was less encumbered by duty and expectation, a time when she had embraced passion without hesitation. She recalled the fleeting moments of reckless abandon shared with Ethan, the thrill of spontaneity that had once made her feel alive. Yet those memories, though vivid, were now tinged with the bitter taste of regret. They clashed with the warmth of the comfortable life she had built with Victor, a life filled with security, elegance, and a quiet promise of stability. The lavish comforts of their home, the steady rhythm of their days, and the shared dreams that had once bound them together now seemed fragile in comparison to the tumult of her inner conflict. As the night deepened, so did her introspection. Sophia pored over every word of Victor's ultimatum, replaying his measured tone and the unyielding look in his eyes. His demand for absolute fidelity, the condition that she sever all ties with Ethan Drake, resonated deeply within her. It was not merely a threat. It was a final, decisive line drawn in the sand, a call to choose between the fleeting allure of a rekindled past and the steadfast promise of a future built on trust. In the stillness of that room, she felt the enormity of her decision. Every luxury in the mansion, every tender moment shared with Victor, had been underpinned by a mutual understanding, an unspoken agreement to safeguard their life together. To betray that foundation again would be to risk everything. Tears welled in her eyes as she confronted the painful duality of her emotions. The allure of Ethan's wild, untamed spirit had momentarily stirred something within her, a reminder of a time when life was unpredictable and every day promised adventure. Yet, in the cold light of this late hour, that passion appeared as nothing more than a seductive mirage. In contrast, Victor represented a commitment that had weathered many storms, a partner who had shared in the burdens of their hidden world and the sacrifices that came with their lavish existence. Her heart ached with the realization that the comfort and security she had taken for granted were not so easily replaced by the erratic flame of old desire. Resolute, Sophia reached a decision. In the quiet aftermath of her inner turmoil, she picked up her phone and, with trembling fingers, sent a message to Victor. It was brief, yet every word was weighted with sincere determination. I choose us. I choose our marriage." The message was both an apology and a promise, a declaration that she would honor the commitment they had forged, no matter how daunting the path ahead might be. The following morning, as dawn crept slowly over the horizon, Sophia found herself in the elegant drawing room of their mansion. The early light revealed every detail of the opulent space, yet all she could focus on was the resolve that had taken root in her heart. When Victor joined her later that day, his expression was guarded, his eyes still reflecting the hurt of betrayal, but also a cautious hope. He listened as she explained her decision, her voice soft but unwavering, recounting the long hours of soul-searching that had led her to this choice. She spoke of the emptiness that had haunted her and the realization that true passion was not found in the ghost of a past love, but in the honest, albeit imperfect, love that they still shared. Victor's stern gaze gradually softened as he absorbed her heartfelt confession. Though the wounds of betrayal had not yet healed, he recognized in her words a genuine desire to rebuild what had been broken. He placed a tentative hand on her shoulder and assured her, "We will work through this, Sophia. Trust can be rebuilt, but it must be nurtured with complete honesty and dedication. I promise you that if we move forward, there will be no more secrets, only the truth, however painful it may be." His voice was resolute, a quiet vow that their bond would be fortified by this trial. In that poignant moment, amid the familiar grandeur of their home, Sophia and Victor stood together on the precipice of a new beginning. The echoes of the past had been confronted, and a decision made with both sorrow and hope. Though the road ahead would be fraught with challenges, the choice was clear. Their future would be built on the fragile promise of renewed loyalty and the mutual commitment to protect the love they had painstakingly crafted. In the weeks that followed the tumultuous showdown at La Horizon, a fragile calm began to settle over the Mercer household. The confrontation, though searing and raw, had forced both Victor and Sophia to confront the deep fissures in their relationship. Determined not to let the past define their future, they embarked on a painstaking journey to rebuild what had been shattered. Late one evening in the study of their mansion, Victor and Sophia sat side by side at a long mahogany table, the soft glow of a desk lamp illuminating a stack of legal documents and handwritten notes. Victor had spent countless hours drafting a new post-nuptial agreement, a document that would serve as both a safeguard and a promise. The contract outlined severe penalties for any future lapses in loyalty, ensuring that the delicate balance of their personal and financial worlds would remain inviolate. Every clause was meticulously worded, designed to prevent secrecy and enforce complete transparency between them. Sophia listened in silence as Victor explained the rationale behind each provision, his voice steady yet tinged with the residue of past hurt. For her, the document was more than legal jargon. It was a symbol of the second chance they were both desperately seeking. As they reviewed the agreement together, there were moments when the silence between them was heavy with unspoken apologies and tentative hope. Sophia acknowledged that her wandering heart had caused irreparable damage, and Victor admitted that his methods of control had, at times, suffocated her spirit. Yet both recognized that their survival as a couple depended on accepting these truths and moving forward with a renewed commitment. When they finally signed the document, it was with the solemn understanding that their bond, though scared, was worth salvaging. Outside the confines of legalese and carefully negotiated terms, healing began in earnest. Sophia sought the guidance of a renowned therapist who specialized in emotional recovery and self-reflection. In her sessions, she delved deep into the layers of her identity, rediscovering not only the woman she had once been, but also the woman she aspired to become. These sessions were painful at times, as they forced her to confront long-buried insecurities and the consequences of her actions. Yet with each passing week, Sophia emerged with a clearer sense of self and a rekindled determination to honor her commitments. She learned to balance her yearning for passion with the necessity of stability, gradually understanding that true fulfillment came from within rather than from the ephemeral thrill of a forbidden love. Meanwhile, Victor redoubled his efforts to tighten the controls on his vast financial empire. The recent upheavals had shown him that his dual life was more precarious than he had ever imagined. He implemented more rigorous security measures and expanded the network of trusted operatives who managed his offshore accounts and crypto wallets. Every transaction was scrutinized with an intensity that bordered on paranoia. But Victor knew that in his world of high stakes, complacency was a luxury he could not afford. With each new safeguard he put in place, he felt a measure of control returning, not just over his business, but over the very chaos that had threatened to unravel his personal life. The tightening of his empire was both a tactical maneuver and a symbolic act of rebuilding, reinforcing the barrier between the dangerous undercurrents of his past and the stable future he wanted to secure. Amid these efforts to reconstruct their lives, the figure of Ethan Drake began to fade from the periphery. Once a looming specter of temptation and rebellion, Ethan found himself increasingly isolated. The relentless pressure from Victor's covert operations had taken its toll. His once boastful charm was now marred by a series of public setbacks and personal misfortunes. Friends who had once admired his freewheeling spirit began to distance themselves, and the media's fascination with his rebellious antics gave way to a narrative of decline. In a final, silent act of resignation, Ethan withdrew from the social circles he once dominated. His departure was not marked by grand declarations or dramatic gestures, but by a quiet exit, a subtle vanishing act that left behind a lingering reminder of the chaos he had nearly sown. With Ethan's retreat, a sense of cautious optimism began to permeate the Mercer home. Victor and Sophia, though still acutely aware of the scars left by betrayal and defiance, started to rebuild their trust brick by brick. Their days became a delicate dance of renewed intimacy and vigilant protection, a constant reminder that love, while fragile, could be nurtured through honesty and mutual respect. Each step forward was measured and deliberate, echoing Victor's years of expertise in navigating high-stakes gambles. Yet in this most personal of arenas, he learned that the true measure of wealth was not in the millions transferred or accounts concealed, but in the enduring strength of a bond that had weathered the fiercest of storms. In the quiet moments of the evening, as they sat together watching the sunset over their manicured gardens, Victor and Sophia shared a silent vow. The past, with all its painful memories and fleeting temptations, had been acknowledged and set aside. What remained was a commitment to face the future together, fortified by a new understanding and a redefined partnership. Their rebuilt fortress was not invincible, but it stood as a testament to their resilience, a reminder that even in a world governed by shadows and subterfuge, loyalty and love could forge a path to redemption. Epilogue. 1 year later, the Mercer mansion exuded an air of quiet resilience. The once turbulent corridors now whispered of hope and new beginnings. In the early morning light, Sophia stood by a large window overlooking the manicured gardens, her hand gently resting on her rounded belly. The soft hum of awakening life inside the mansion mingled with the delicate chirps of birds outside, creating a symphony of renewal that echoed the transformation of her heart. Her eyes, once clouded with regret and longing, now held a calm determination, a promise of the future she had fought so hard to reclaim. Across the room, Victor observed Sophia from a respectful distance, his gaze softening as he took in the scene. Though the scars of the past were still visible in the quiet lines of his face, they had softened with time and introspection. The relentless pursuit of financial dominance had given way, at least in part, to an earnest commitment to the life they were rebuilding together. Victor's world, once dominated by covert operations and the cold calculations of high finance, now had a new focal point: family, trust, and the fragile beauty of redemption. In the study, amidst neatly organized files and the familiar hum of secure computers, Victor had restructured his empire. The vast network of offshore accounts and shell corporations still thrived, but he now operated with a renewed sense of purpose. Every transaction was monitored not just for risk, but as part of a broader strategy to support a stable home life. He had even begun to delegate more responsibility to trusted lieutenants, freeing him to invest in the personal aspects of his existence that he had long neglected. With each passing day, he learned that the true measure of wealth was not the glitter of gold or the flash of banknotes, but the strength of bonds forged in trust and love. Even as life moved forward, Victor remained vigilant. The shadows of his past, once ever-present and threatening, had receded into a more manageable dusk. He kept a careful watch over his periphery, aware that in his world of high stakes, danger could lurk in unexpected corners. Yet he allowed himself moments of genuine relaxation, quiet evenings spent in the garden with Sophia, the soft clink of dinnerware in the background, and the distant sound of laughter echoing from a gathering of close friends. These were the moments he had come to cherish as much as any financial triumph. At a small celebration in the grand dining hall one evening, close friends and confidants gathered to toast the impending arrival of Sophia and Victor's first child. The room, adorned with tasteful decorations and the soft glow of candlelight, was filled with heartfelt congratulations and warm smiles. Amid the laughter and gentle clinking of glasses, Victor and Sophia exchanged glances that spoke of battles fought and won, not merely against external threats, but against the internal demons of doubt and betrayal. The past, with all its painful memories, had been acknowledged and transformed into a lesson that strengthened their bond. In a quiet moment after the celebration, as the last of the guests departed, Victor and Sophia retreated to the terrace. They stood together, watching the city lights flicker like distant stars. Sophia rested her hand on Victor's arm, and he, in turn, held her close. Their shared silence was profound, a wordless affirmation of their commitment to a future built on a renewed foundation of trust. The cool night air carried a promise of hope and caution, a reminder that while life could never be entirely free of shadows, the light they nurtured together was strong enough to keep darkness at bay. In that reflective silence, they both understood that redemption was not an endpoint but an ongoing journey, a delicate balance of hope, resilience, and unwavering loyalty. The Mercer Mansion, once a fortress built on deception and intricate financial maneuvers, had evolved into a sanctuary where the true currency was love and trust. And as the horizon glowed with the promise of a new dawn, Victor and Sophia embraced the bittersweet truth that while the past could never be erased, it could serve as the foundation upon which a brighter, more authentic future was constructed. Thanks to everyone who took the time to listen to today's stories. If you enjoyed it, please consider liking and subscribing if you haven't already. Feel free to share your thoughts on the events in the comments below. Take care.